everyone. I have the distinct pleasure this evening of introducing Kris Habermehl, a very exciting speaker here at our third Friday series of the Maritime. Yes.
Yeah, Kelsey, I noticed.
Now, Kris is an award-winning journalist, a reporter, a pilot, a historian, a lecturer, and a lifelong boat nerd. It's his word, not mine. Flying over Chicago for more than 3 decades, reporting on traffic and spot news for CBS TV station WBBM, Kris also uses his aviation background as the longtime WBBM radio voice of the Chicago Air and Water Show. Appearing in documentaries, which if you've been to our north side of the gallery, you may know Heroes on Deck, World War II on Lake Michigan, and City at War, Chicago, Kris believes wholeheartedly in preserving the rich maritime history of Chicago. He also proudly serves on the board of the Glenview Hangar One Foundation. Kris can be seen weekdays on the CBS Chicago Morning Show, reporting from the station's helicopter known as Skywatch. Now, if you're interested in what we're doing today with this blend of air and water, I recommend you also come next month in April. We have Kathy Alonso from the Evanston History Center, and she will be talking about how early airmail routes were influenced by waterways and water navigation. So, you know, you're going to get 2 different sides of this very interesting relationship. I'm Madeline Crispell, I'm the curator, and I am very happy to turn things over now to Kris. Let's give him a hand.
Wow, all that applause, you haven't even heard me talk yet. I like this crowd. Good evening, everybody, and hi, everybody who's Zooming with us, everybody who's online. As you've heard, my name's Kris Habermehl, and I have been paid to talk for more than 3.5 decades. So tonight, I am more than happy to be here gratis, because I will, as anybody who knows me knows, that once I get talking, it's like cut, quit, stop. Enough already. We want to go home. Everybody's asleep. But I love this topic. I'm a lifelong Chicagoan, even though, truth be told, I was born in Tulsa, but we moved up here when I was 2 years old, and I've been here ever since. So I've been a naturalized Chicagoan. My father, you're going to hear a little bit about my background, because I need to kind of frame up why I'm a boat nerd, why I got involved in maritime affairs and events here in the city of Chicago. My dad had a burglar and fire alarm company. And when I was hired on over at Shadow Traffic, first of all, doing traffic, they're like, how do you know about all of the neighborhoods and the streets and how everything is numbered and why it is where it is? It's because I've helped my dad put alarm systems in everything. And one of my favorite places to go was Babe's Club, which was at 100th and Commercial. And basically, it was a watering hole for not only the sailors who were going down the street or up the street, as the case may be, from the KCBX dock or any of the other docks that were close by, but also the railroaders, the guys coming in from the Indiana Harbor Belt Railroad. And one of my bestest buddies, he was a railroad engineer over there. His name was Boots. Nobody ever knew him by any other name. He came in for recreational beverages so he could keep his switch locomotive switching, and basically he allowed me to have my first hand on the throttle of anything other than a tricycle. So I was out actually bumping cars out in the Harbor Belt Rail Yard. Oh, yes, everybody online. Hello down there. I'm sitting here talking to the big crowd here, but could you mute your microphones, please? I've had that request coming in. So, without further ado, this picture that you see before you is how everybody basically gets to see DuSable Lakeshore Drive. This is how I get to see DuSable Lakeshore Drive. So, it gives you a whole different perspective, and being able to fly over, drive through, work in and around the city of Chicago, I get to see not only the Lake Michigan shoreline, I get out over, here's a kind of a wide view for everybody coming in off of the outer break wall. I'm not Superman and I swim kind of okay, but we kind of like to keep the helicopter over the break wall to be perfectly legal. If the fan turns off overhead, watch the pilot sweat. So we don't want to do that. I'm also out west. For those of you who are into our inland waterways, whether it's here we are in the Des Plaines River Basin, we've got the Sanitary and Ship Canal up the middle there, the real straight looking thing, the kind of semi-straight thing off to the right there, that's Des Plaines River. And then for those of you who like the Illinois and Michigan Canal, that little truncated section that kind of veers off and is kind of a little spleen looking thing off to the left there, reflecting in the water. It's been cut through by the Cal-Sag Channel at that point. On the other side of what we call Mount Forest Island, which was actually an island when the Wisconsin Glacier melted and the outwash channel formed this big basin here. Part of the other island chain was Blue Island, yes indeed, and you could see when you're flying how that terrain actually comes up here. So these are stories for another day. I had to, because of my head would explode here. I will go off on a tangent. I will find a boat and talk about it all day. I'll find a river and talk about it all day. And that's part and parcel with what I do. This here is what we're going to be talking about today. Notice the Skyway, which opened in 1958. And you can see the Skyway High Bridge, which just today, the National Transportation Safety Board recommended somebody may want to look at that for its collapse potential. All right. That's it. This is all private now. But underneath here, you can see the approach channel to the Calumet Harbor there. This channel was actually dug in 1869. That was actually cut through all the way from Lake Calumet and the Calumet River all the way to the lake shore. So it's been there for a long time. It was very early on. It was believed to be a really good place for a harbor. So that's great. And it was a reliever harbor for downtown Chicago, especially in the rebuilding after the Great Chicago Fire in 1871. We'll talk more about that coming up. Right now, this is a little bit closer view of getting in here. We're down here by Crowley's. We got the turning basin there, the South Ewing Street drawbridge. For those of you who are at home, I'm going to say lower right, lower left, because if I put a pointer on it, I have my little handy dandy pet pointer here that drives cats crazy. I can go ahead and use this to point here, but you're not going to see it at home. So I'm just going to reference it. Yes. Oh, they're not seeing me. Okay. So, all righty. So stand by. Please stand by. Sunset's quick around here.
Okay, there's an easy way to do this.
Share screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna share the whole screen, guys. Don't worry. Okay.
We're coming. We're getting it. I let the magic smoke out of the wires. That's why I have to defer to Madeline to do
There
this.
we go.
All righty. So, hi, everybody. Finally. Let's go ahead and take a look at Calumet Harbor, shall we? Let's get a little bit closer. We'll take a look at this after ender here, which is parked right next to, or docked right next to, parked. I'm still thinking traffic here. Right next to the South Ewing Street drawbridge, which is the oldest drawbridge in the system right here. That's number 5 of the bridges that were at that particular location there. So let's talk about history over the horizon. Take a really good look at this photograph here as we're seeing our classic lake boat come in here by the KCBX dock. You'll see that the 106th Street drawbridge is open. You will notice that there's also, and I'm going to use my little cat pointer here for everybody who's assembled. Right here, this is the old Federal Furnace. This was established in 1905. That became Acme Steel. Over in here, you had Republic Steel, Grand Crossing Tack Company. Now look at all of the infrastructure that's all up and down through here. We've got the Cargill elevator. There's another grain elevator over here. Byproducts Coke Company is way in the upper right corner there. Over about 127th and Torrance Avenue, it has a big overhead conveyor right there. That was the only suspension bridge in the city of Chicago. Right there, that overhead conveyor, because it was a true suspension bridge. It was actually being held up by the cables there. And when they did take it down, it got its revenge because it fell across Torrance Avenue and closed that down for several weeks. Anybody who might have been underneath there, they would have been crushed to jello. So we're glad that it happened about 2 a.m. in the morning. Okay, let's talk about Chicago's ghost ship right out of the gate, shall we? Because every time I get online, I see everybody, and those of you who are watching at home, if you watch on YouTube and just put in Chicago's ghost ship, guess what you get? You get Cement Transit Company #1, which is kind of a innocuous name for a vessel that has had quite a interesting history, shall we say. So let's go ahead and take a look at what CTC #1, that is not abandoned. It is not abandoned, folks. It is actually belongs to Grand River Navigation. So please don't go on there visiting anymore. Right now, this is what the Steelton looked like in better days. The vessel was actually launched as a Frank Purnell back in 1943. It was one of the, and is to this day, one of the last unmolested Maritimers. The Maritime fleet was woefully small at the beginning of World War II. And so in order to go ahead and up the ante and allow the iron ore to be brought from the upper lakes down to the steel mills of Gary and the lower lakes, they built a bunch of identical vessels like this, and they called those Maritimers. So Steelton operated for Bethlehem Steel starting in about 1964. And on August 25th, 1974, we're going to go about 20 years further down. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, it kind of took out a bridge on the Welland Canal over at Port Robinson. That bridge was never replaced. So ever since that time, the folks at Port Robinson have been using a ferry to get back and forth from one side of the Welland Canal to the other there. So the bridge actually was not fully raised, and the Steelton took it out. And that's kind of what it looked like before they took it away there. Now, some interesting things, and that was August 11th, 2001, I believe. There's something interesting else about this whole thing. Actually, pardon me, about the 2001 deal. I'll get back to that in just a minute. We've got ourselves a bridge which is destroyed, a vessel which is destroyed. It was rebuilt. It was put back in service. It had one cement contract for the year 1979, and then it wound up being a cement transfer barge here at the city of Chicago. And that's why it became CTC #1 and hasn't had a name worn on it since. Now, this is what it looks like at dockside right now. If you were to go down there, this is what all of our urban explorers see. This is what Hollywood sees in Batman: The Dark Knight. This was one of the operating hideouts for the Joker. and notice how they have digitally painted the entire vessel. Looks pretty good, huh? That's kind of magic. All right, let's go to the Medusa Challenger. Everybody loves the Medusa Challenger. And I have a raft of notes up here because I will tell you, it has been through the ringer. This is all the different owners of the Medusa Challenger here. It spent 39,349 days, which is 107 years, 8 months, and 5 days as the longest serving self-propelled lake freighter in history. So February 17th, 1906, she was launched, which was on a Saturday, and she was finished with engines November 11th, 2013, which was on a Monday. So it was launched as William P. Snyder for Shenango Furnace in 1906. So this is what she looks like on the ways. She became one of many, and I'm going to talk about this name time and again, Elton Hoyt II. How many Elton Hoyts II have there been? A lot. So it actually wore the name Elton Hoyt II for a number of years, and that was in 1926. That became Elton Hoyt II for Stewart Furnace. Then it was acquired by Youngstown Steamship in 1929, Interlake Steamship in 1930. The engine was changed from triple expansion to the Skinner Unifoil. We'll talk about that. It became the Alex Chisholm in 1952, the Medusa Challenger in 1966. And we'll tell you about its starring role in movies. Southdown Challenger, 98, St. Mary's Challenger in 2005, Port City Steamship acquired it in 2009, and it was cut down to the articulated tug barge and married to the Prentice Brown in 2014. So here's what she looks like now. The hull is still the hull, but you can see the Prentice Brown at the backside there, an articulated tug barge where at least the hull is still around after what, 119 years? So this is what happened to, everybody wants to know, the pilot house that went to Toledo. And when it was cut off, it actually wound up being put on the Paul Tregurtha. The Paul Tregurtha did the honors to bring it to Toledo. And this is how it was transported by barge. And there you can see there, right on the Maumee River there in Toledo, and it's going to the museum. Joe Mantegna, believe it or not, that was his very first movie, The Medusa Challenger. You can go online and on YouTube tonight, when you go home, it's a short, it's only about 25 minutes long. He and Jack Wallace starred in this. It was filmed in the summer of 1976 with the Medusa Challenger right downtown. And it was released in May of 1977. And believe it or not, this is one of the only movies that is allowed in the Republic of China to be viewed without any kind of censorship whatsoever. Joe Mantegna's first appearance on film. Joe's from Chicago, and Jack Wallace, who passed away in 2020, is from Pekin. And they both did it. It's basically, he's a little slow, but he sells flowers on Lakeshore Drive before they got rid of the S-curve. So you will be able to see the S-curve. You'll see all sorts of great things, including the world-famous parking lot over at Navy Pier that was always full of broken glass, right there by the Jardine plant. J.B. Ford, this was another vessel that was used down by what eventually became Lafarge at the south end of the lakes here. She was afloat from 1903 until her eventual ultimate scrapping in 2022. She was actually went to scrap in about 2015. It took a long time to take that boat apart. And the J.B. Ford was used there as a shoreside dry cement carrier. Joe Franz, and I could sit here and talk about each one of these boats, but I'm going to cycle through them. Otherwise, I'm going to be losing my time here because there's a lot to go through. Joe Franz was in the water from 1925 to 2005, and that also went to scrap. And I think I just went backwards. There we go. St. Crapo. You notice that the Crapo was up alongside there. She also finally was completely out of the water in 2022. Pierre Marquette, this was the old City of Midland 41 car ferry, but her boiler foundations were rotted. So she was cut down and turned into a barge. And Pierre Marquette 41 with the tug Undaunted, both of these date back to World War II. Undaunted was actually launched in 44 as an ocean rescue tug for the Navy. And so this is part of a deal with Interlake Steamship, and we'll talk more about the future coming up. But she was purchased by Interlake along with the Spartan and the Badger as part of one big deal. Lee Tregurtha. This is the only boat that you will see out on the lake. She's up at Fraser shipyards right now. I just saw a picture of her from day before yesterday when the Coast Guard was doing some ice breaking. And by the way, at 8 a.m. this morning, the Sioux opened. And what was the first vessel through? An articulated tug barge. Tregurtha's up at the wall, John Boland's at the wall, and the Ed Ryerson Fast Eddie is up there too, and Fraser. So Lee Tregurtha, this is the only vessel that has two battle stars that you're going to see on Lake Michigan. This is how she looked when she was first launched, the USS Chihuahua. She was an oiler. She actually participated in the invasion of North Africa. She got a battle star for that. She was attacked by U-boats in her convoy off the Azores, and she got a battle star for that one. She came out and she became the Mobil Oil, then the Samoset or the Samoset, depending on which side of the tracks you're from. And then she became the Walter Sterling. You'll notice that the amidships pilot house has been moved forward. She's been converted into a lake boat. She's been lengthened as well. And then she became the Lee Tregurtha. And she's been the Lee Tregurtha ever since. Very distinctive stern on the back of that. So you'll see Alpina. And Alpina's always been an interesting boat, and that's her on the left, because one of the master's names was Steve Habermehl. I didn't know there's 159 Habermehls in the United States, and one of them happens to be, or at one time was the master of the Alpina. So Steve, if you're watching, hi. Anyway, I might be related to you. And she's still out there right now. So she's still going strong. This is what she looks like outside where the large Lafarge barge, the tug barge Integrity, that's 130th in the back there. And the Lafarge terminal right out of the frame at the upper left would be the Ford plant down there at 130th. Paul Townsend, you'd see Paul Townsend every now and again. 1945 on till now, and that vessel is in long-term layup. I believe she's in storage, being used for storage up in Green Bay at this time. Elton Hoyt, another Elton Hoyt II. Here we go. That became the Mississippi Cotton. I have to be very careful. It's Mississippi Cotton. I want to say Mississippicotin. Everybody wants to say Mississippicotin, but it's Mississippi Cotton. I'm Bad River Ojibwe, and that's Ojibwe for Big Bluff. It's a different band, but it's the same language there. And every now and again, friends of mine from up there, because my mom was full-blood Chippewa from Ashland, Wisconsin, so Ashland Bayfield and the big ore docks up there. And my dad was from Germany. He came over on the SS United States, rest in pieces, in 1955. He was glad to be anywhere that there weren't bombs falling on his head. So he actually was not in the German army. He was too young at the time. But all the younger folks were in the Hitler Youth because basically you don't have any say so. You have to be. So he manned an anti-aircraft battery, and the only thing they ever did was open fire. Make believe that there was an actual anti-aircraft a necessity for that. Their battery opened up because they didn't want to take a test that day. So they went outside and said that there was actually aircraft in the air when there weren't. And they opened fire, and all the other anti-aircraft batteries opened fire, so they got the rest of the afternoon off. But they eventually had to take the test anyway. So that, yeah. He came here, so... You could say yes, you could say no, but yeah, so he came over, and once you get Native American, full-blood German, you get them together, and this is what you get. So hi, everybody. Anyway, so Elton Hoyt II, she was launched in 1952. Here she is at KCBX. This is what she looks like. Unfortunately, she was up in Superior. The crew heard a big resounding crack in the hull, and the divers went down there. She took on about a 15-degree starboard list, as you can see here. She was able, after the all non-essential crew were taken off, able to limp into the harbor, and she had about a 13-foot running crack through the hull. So she's still up north in the shipyard, but they haven't let her out yet. They're kind of assessing the hull to see if are we putting a Band-Aid on something that, is essentially going to eventually fail. So she could be done for. Philip Clark, the world's biggest fishing boat. And I'll tell you about the Philip Clark back in the mid-1980s, 1986 to be exact. She was up in Duluth, and she let go her starboard anchor. And everything was all well and good until they pulled the starboard anchor up, and on the right fluke, they had a car that they had hooked that had been missing for 5 years with 2 bodies in it. So Philip Clark, world's biggest fishing boat, and she is identical in outlay, in dimension, in draft, and everything else to the Arthur Anderson. You'll also see the Arthur Anderson again. It's another class of Maritimers here that came out in 1952, and again, to efficiently move ore back and forth. So the Arthur Anderson is still among us. She's still with us. She'll probably be coming back out again. I believe she's at Toledo right now. And Arthur Anderson, that's for those who aren't familiar, she was running in tandem with the Edmund Fitzgerald. November 10th, 1975, and Bernie Cooper, the master, who was a very good friend of Ernest McSorley, who was the master of the Fitzgerald. He was the one who took the radio call and asked them how they were doing, and he asked the Fitzgerald if he could check his speed a little bit. They were going to close in on him, and they had him on radar, then they didn't. All they had was sea return. It just disappeared. So they said, "How you doing?" About 7:10 p.m. It was already dark. They saw the lights of the Fitzgerald, and then they didn't. and he sailed past the area, made it into Whitefish Bay. He contacted the Coast Guard, said, I haven't passed him. And there were 3 upwater or upbound saltwater vessels, the Nanfree, the Benfree, and the Ava Force, and nobody saw anything. So the Coast Guard at Group Sioux asked him to come back out again. He said, you know, if it's not hazarding your vessel, he's like, hey, you could have 2 on the bottom if I go back out. But he knew what he had to do, so he turned around and went back out. So William Clay Ford went out. They recovered a lifeboat that was broken in half, and he sailed into the debris field, but they never recovered anybody. So moving on to Kay Barker. Everybody sees the Kay Barker everywhere. Interlake steamship boats. She's essentially unchanged from when she was launched. Again, you'll see a lot of these boats post-World War II were launched in the early 1950s. And these are all Sweetwater vessels, so the hulls stay intact. So unless you've got a boiler foundation or an engine mount or something that's rotted through, you'll be good to go for a while. Herbert C. Jackson, again, another interlake boat. We see these vessels time and again here. We'll talk more about each one of these. I'm just going to go and kind of hit on some of these still frames. Then we're going to go to the video, and we'll show you how these vessels are working and what I am seeing and the different things that go into operating these vessels. Herbert Jackson still out there, 1959 she was launched. Charles Beagley is now the Honorable James L. Oberstar. So that's kind of wordy, but she's still out there. Winddock. Okay, don't name your boat Winddock. In 1899, the first Winddock was launched, and the first Winddock hit a bridge and took it out on the Welland Canal in 1938. Now we move to August 11th, 2001, where this Winddock had a bridge on the Welland Canal lowered into it, and it caught fire and was a constructed total loss. And so the bridge operator maintains that he was innocent. However, the investigation said that the individual was, quote, impaired as the bridge was being lowered down, and took the funnel off, rolled the funnel across the afterdeck, and it caught fire. So everybody's all right, but the boat went away. So maybe not. Winddock and the Welland Canal don't really get along. Edward Ryerson, Fast Eddie. You'll notice that the Ed Ryerson is probably one of the most beautiful lake boats ever built. By virtue of her streamlined styling, and of course reflective of getting out of the late 50s into the 60s. As a matter of fact, this boat coming into the Sioux Locks would always get the premiere, the closest lock, because all the boat nerds, all the boat watchers want to see and go up close and personal with Ed Ryerson. She has been in long-term layup up at Fraser Shipyards up in Superior, Wisconsin. She's still there and still looks very much like that. Just saw a picture of her the other day. Algo Rail, you notice the lightering barges are across the side here. She was a little bit too deep to come in at the time that I was out there flying around her. This picture was taken back in about 1996. So the mouth of the harbor had silted up a little bit. You'll notice that, and we'll talk about it too, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They have a kind of a big triangular area where they take the dredgings, the contaminated dredgings from the channel to maintain the 27-foot depth, and they dump it all in there. They wanted to actually raise it another 22 feet, but the environmental concerns went out and they said, nope, you're not going to do it. And they agreed. They said, we're going to go and do something out with it. If they were not contaminated, the dredgings could be dumped out in the open lake. But here, because especially right along the seawall by the old U.S. Southworks, U.S. Steel Southworks plants, you've got arsenic and mercury and all sorts of other nasty stuff down there that's in the goop at the bottom, at the sediment there. So you can see lightering barges here. She was actually scrapped in 2018 after kind of a career that included lots of groundings, let's put it that way. Canadian Leader. She did not have a really long lifespan here. Some they just don't. Canada right now, the big issue is that are you still building boats in Canada? No, they're having boats built in China and in across the Croatia. I think they're building boats and bringing them over here because of the monetary cost. We, however, hello Jones Act, we are still building boats, and I'll show you a brand new one in just a minute. Salty's coming in there. You could see that we got a fine variety of saltwater vessels. You can always tell because they're always the rustiest things around when they come in there. And let's talk about the Plimsoll line. You notice that somebody's in ballast here in the foreground, and in the background there, she's loaded down to her midsummer marks there. As we know, that warmer water is not as buoyant as colder water, and salt water is more buoyant than any of our sweet water. So it all depends on where you're going and what the temperatures are, how much cargo you can actually carry. And so you'll see the marks along the side of the hull there, along with the agency that approved those marks there. Byproducts Coke. Take a look at this. There was a lot of buildings in that big open area right there. Starting in the late 1990s all the way through to the present day, we've lost more and more and more buildings. Our architectural environment, the industrial architecture has been progressively stripped away. And I will show you in the flyover video coming up here how that occurs. Torrance Avenue Lift Bridge. This one is actually another one that is one of the latest of about 5 different bridges that were in this particular location. This particular evolution of the bridge dates to the 1930s, about 1936. But the Torrance Avenue Lift Bridge they've made great strides to keep it in service, and they've done quite a good job doing the overhaul. I've been flying around that one for years. Speaking of bridges, 95th Street, right outside of Crowley's. Here you go, the Blues Brothers. and yes, indeed, they jumped over the bridge in front of the W.W. Holloway. And so for you at home and here in the room assembled, if you are into trivia, yeah, it was a W.W. Holloway that you jumped in front of. Acme Steel, you'll see in the background there. Behind our Interlake boat, and we've got a Stolt tanker in the front there. That was the original Federal furnace. This is a little bit better photograph of it, along with some of the overhead gantries that you had there, your offloading equipment, your shoreside equipment. You'll notice that they have the loading boom, the self offloading boom there, dropping the iron ore in the ore bunker right there. The original straight deckers, you would have to be offloaded and loaded from shoreside equipment. Calumet Nights, this is really cool. When you get down there and all the boats are lit up and you can see the bridges for miles and miles, and it's just one of those things that you don't get a chance to see. When you're down there, it's really dark at the surface. But when you're up there, flying over it, you can see this is Ewing Street. The drawbridge is really well illuminated. All the drawbridges are. We've got our after ender coming in here. I think that might be the Calumet coming in and making the turn right there. What does the future hold? Well, the future is this. We've got ourselves these are kind of a river class of Laker. These are about 650, 670 feet long. This vessel was launched from up in Wisconsin, up at Bay. Mark Barker. This is a vessel which is kind of a combination vessel. Not only do you have the bulk cargo, and you can see here before the cargo covers were put on all of the cargo holds, you're also able to load large cargoes on top of the deck. So let's say there's a project afoot to put wind turbines out in Lake Michigan, that you can put the wind turbine blades and the wind turbine parts and things up on the deck. She was launched in 2022, and this is what she looks like. She actually has a offloading boom facing aft from up in the forepeak there, as opposed to the other way around. That actually makes her even more able to extend cargo and discharge it onto shoreside assets there. And you can see that the hatch combings and the hatch covers there are very smooth. You can put other large cargoes in there and inside. It's not a hopper bottom. You could put all sorts of mixed cargo in there, not just bulk commodities and what have you. So this was the first vessel launched, and this is a Jones Act vessel. This is U.S. flagged, U.S. crewed, U.S. built, U.S. ship, operating in U.S. waters since 1983. So that was a long time, but we actually put a ship in the water after 35 years, the first new Laker in 35 years, and there's going to be more, guaranteed. There's already more that are going to be coming out. So we're going to shift gears now. I'm stepping out of the way because I let the smoke out of the wires. Madeline's going to shift me from this over to our video presentation, and you can see my point of view getting into Calumet Harbor and exactly what I get to see. And now you're going to get to see it too.
Is it the one on the desktop that we want to start with, or is it
Yeah, there should
this one in here?
Should be the one that's in there.
You're just gonna have to bear with me, folks, for one moment here. Let's see. Oh, what?
Instruction code.
Just gonna take it out. I'm gonna put it back in. Oh. That's a noise that means it's working.
Yeah.
Is it in?
Should be. Should be still in there. Yeah, still in there. We have ignition, or we will in a minute.
Yeah.
This is where in radio you would have the musical interlude.
Everybody buy War Bond.
Yeah.
The Andrews sisters are here to say. Okay.
All right. Okay, so here we are at the entrance channel. And once again, I always seem to be flying over here. I always have the most time when it's winter time. I'm always down there. So what I'm actually doing is I'm flying down there, just kind of killing time in between all of the other mayhem that we're covering back in here. The EJ&E Bridge, believe it or not, that looks really old. That dates back to about 1974. That erector set bridge that is up there. South Ewing Street there, as we're making the turn, we're going to be seeing as we get out of the turning basin here, and over here is Crowley's right there on the left. There's 95th Street. There's more Crowley's. And then we get down here to this number of vertical lift bridges. You'll notice that there's a stump of a bridge over here. I was hit by a boat and taken down there. That's a Strauss single bascule bridge. It was a very rare bridge and a boat took it out. So that's gone on. The Skyway High Bridge, which was opened in April of 1958 at 125 feet above the water. It's the highest bridge in the city of Chicago. We are the movable bridge capital of the world with at least 36 operable double bascule trunnion style bridges. There's 100th Street where I would used to sit there with my father and watch these mountains of steel go by. KCBX dock on the right, the old American shipbuilding. That was a dry dock. As a matter of fact, American shipbuilding had been there since the late 1800s. And they basically ceased operation there in about 1981. And that dry dock in 1954, actually, they worked on the U-505 when they brought it here. So it was in that dry dock as well. And a lot of the vessels that were modified, some that were even built, were built there at that American shipping dock. You're gonna see a lot more, which is out of the frame right now off to the right. We're gonna come back to that. That's the bridge at 106th Street. The eastern leaf there in the mid-90s was hit by a Polish freighter that swung wide, actually picked that eastern leaf up and dumped it completely into the mechanical space down there. And it blew the gears apart and it was really nasty. So it took about 6 months to fix that leaf. They kept it closed for about a year and routed traffic to 100th in order to just, hey, it's broken. Why don't we fix the other leaf too? We can go ahead and do some adjustments there. You'll notice here a big change over the years. We've gone from a lot of the bulk freighters, the big bulkers, to more barge traffic down there. A lot of barges. And you can see the barge track right up the middle here. This is something I want to point out, and this is something we're going to take a real good close look at right over here. And I don't know why my little thingamajigger isn't working. But anyway, those are two what look to be Hewlett unloaders. Those are actually Wellman Electric unloaders. Now, Sam Wellman was a good friend of George Westinghouse. And they, over the years, they kind of palled together and they traded notes back and forth. You'll notice here the Cargill terminal just disappearing to the right side there. This was all, at one time, this was all covered. It was covered like this structure over here, but that caved in to snow. There was also a very large elevator right here, which was taken down in the late 90s and had those bins substituted. On the outside of the curve there, off to the left, that's Chemical Bend, where all the blow-upable stuff is. The things that catch fire, things that, yeah, there's a big sulfur pile over there too. Yeah, you can see that thing from space. It's like, wow, there's a sulfur pile. Yeah, coming over the, and Google Earth too. Yeah, you can see it on there. Coming over the South Torrance Avenue Bridge, off to the left, you've got the Ford plant, which is the oldest Ford operation outside of Michigan, and they made the Model A. Let me tell you a little story about the Model A Ford while we're going down here toward the O'Brien Lock, which is actually over on the other side of 130th here. And you'll see the barge tracks up the middle here in the large Lafarge terminal. The Chicago Fire Department. I'm going to get off for just a minute because I'm also a lieutenant with the Kirkland Fire Department. I've been in the fire service for 20 years. The red and green lights that you see, kind of reminiscent of Red Right Returning. Yeah, that's because the first fire commissioner, Al Goodrich, was of the Goodrich Transportation Company, and he established that. And on top of it, he also had ordered, or the fire department had ordered, a little bit after him, the first mechanical vehicles that weren't horse-drawn to be their chief's buggies, and they were Model A Fords. And the Model A Fords came in. There's that CTC #1 again, doggone it. Model A Fords came in any color you wanted as long as it was black. That's old man Ford for you. And so they thought to themselves, we can't show up in an Undertaker colored vehicle there to a fire. We want it to be bright red. So they painted it red. But what happened? The canvas tops shed the red paint. Only the steel took the red paint. And so your black over red paint scheme was born. They said, just don't paint the top. That looks really neat. Put a little gold stripe down the middle. And let's do the red and green. I think we got something. We're onto something. And now all the other fire departments are jealous. So here we are flying along the Port of Illinois, the Illinois Port District. I'll tell you about that, and I'll tell you why they've been suffering for such a long time in just a minute. This northernmost elevator set is empty. There's nothing in there. But the one on the south, that's filled with lime. So that's a kind of a silica lime that is used by a company called Mount Carmel Stabilization. And Mount Carmel Stabilization uses it for soil for farmers and also as ingredient for cement. This is when the St. Mary's Challenger had been taken. She was under flying the flag of Port City from Muskegon, the old McKee Brothers Sand Products Company. Port City steamships. She would winter down here along with some of the other articulated barges. They weren't on the wall when I went down there at this time. Also Tootsie Roll. Did you know Tootsie Roll brings in sugar by the barge load down there? They refine it on dockside and then they truck it out. Canadian National brings in wood. There's all sorts of stuff that's going on down there. So it's viable. It's just not as, I guess you could call it as hard scrabble as it used to be, where we had the big steel making operations down there. You had U.S. Steel, which closed in 92. There's 20,000 people that were out there, 570 acres of nothing there on the shore side. You had Youngstown Sheet and Tube, Acme Steel, Republic Steel, the Memorial Day Massacre in 1937, outside of Republic Steel, where you had union workers, some that had signed contracts and others that did not want to sign contracts. And they had brought in, unfortunately, police officers that were acting as security, and they opened fire, and I believe 10 people got killed. 10 of the striking workers got killed, and innumerable others were injured. There's down at 117th and Avenue O, there's at the gates to the old Republic Steel plant, there's a memorial down there to the Memorial Day Massacre. This is the quenching tower over at Byproducts Coke plant. And basically all coke is it's kind of spiced up coal. It's a rebaked coal that you can use for the fuel for the blast furnace. And so they would bake it up here, and then they would send it across the highway and on that elevated conveyor belt all the way over to be used in the blast furnace over at Acme Steel. All of the vertical steel members in that quenching tower, that's all gone. That's all been scrapped. All you have is just a little stump of where the rail cars used to go through to get cooled down, to get quenched. Here we are off of South Torrance Avenue, and a lot of these buildings are gone too. That actually was the entrance building down there. We're going to be making a quick turn in the aircraft over the top here to kind of give you an idea of some of what was left out there. And I remember the first time I saw it, when I first started flying for the news in 1993, this was an active and operation. This one here, this particular flight, and I have it marked down here, was February 11th, 2010. February of 2010. So now we're going back, looking down toward the south. There's Chemical Bend back in there. We're going to turn back around here in just a little bit. And then we're going to start talking about and get a really good view of what is happening to the Wellman unloading cranes over here. These our version, our specific version, and they really should have been saved. And I will tell that to anybody of the Hewlett unloader. Here we are over the top of the old Grand Crossing Tack Company. This was actually getting into part of what was Republic Steel. That was all wiped out. This is all now a recycling company that's down here that is taking over all of that open space. We came back around, we turned around, and this was unannounced. I did not know this was going to happen. I did not come down here specifically to see this, and I get down here and they're cutting them apart. And you notice that the one to the north in the back there is still intact, but the one to the south has already been cleaved in half. They've actually gone up there and they've used their acetylene, their burning bars, their torches, cut it completely in half. And so now I'm going to fly around this for a few minutes because I'm thinking to myself, you're not going to see this again. If I come out here in another week, and I did, they were all gone. They were gone. Not only were they taken down, these big electric unloaders, there was no sign that they'd ever been there. And I saw the demolition company. I made note of it on the side here, this NF Demolition, and they were just hauling for Atlas. And so I called the guys over at Atlas Demolition and I said, could you save me some part of this at all? I'll pay the scrap value on it. Can I even get a rivet? I got nothing. Zero. Zip. After about the fourth call, they wouldn't take my calls anymore. And the thing is, when we get back around to the other side here, there's a large plate that's cut that says Wellman on it. I said, if you don't save anything else, save that. And I don't know if somebody's got it in their backyard and it's got daisies growing through it or what. But as I came around here, I needed to document not only what was happening and what it took in order to destroy these, but the interior workings. There's the track that they ran on. These are all electric. That's a lot of juice flowing through this thing. And when we get around to the other side here, here's your clamshell bucket. It's kind of at rest in this trough right here. It would come out into the boat, come back into and discharge into the or bunker right here, right underneath here. Your product would go right underneath there. The operator would actually be on top of that clamshell. They were riding it into the hold, coming back out, riding it into the hold. So it was quite a trip. So here we are coming back in. This shows you kind of featuring what the camera can do from the aircraft. We have actually, this is 2010. Now that it's 2025, our definition has gone up exponentially. So if you're outside and the helicopter's around, make sure you don't have anything in your teeth. You know, if you had a poppy seed bun or something, yeah, you may want to keep your mouth closed because we'll be able to see all that stuff. Because remember, we're up about 1,000 feet above ground level here. Okay, here's your operator's car right here. You'd be sitting right in there. So you get a window, you get a window on either side, but you would ride that up and down and up and down. And there's, you can see right there. What harm would it have been to just keep that? You know, come on. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that a supervisor or foreman or somebody doesn't have it. Or it could be laying up against the side of the building somewhere. But I tried and didn't hear anything back, which is, but these, not only do they go up and down, they can actually rotate. They can actually spin that around there. So it was very ahead of its time. These date back to the early 1920s, since they were out there. And to think that they're just gone, and there will be generations who will never have seen this. So I thought it was, you know, we may be spending a lot of time flying around this thing, but bear with me because I just wanted to kind of soak it in and understand the beauty of something which is kind of ungainly looking. The value of our industrial architecture cannot be understated. This is what helped America live during World War II. This is what helped England survive during World War II. If it wasn't for this equipment, the manpower, the sheer willpower to go on in the face of a daunting adversary who had the upper hand when this whole thing started, we wouldn't be here today, or it would look a lot different. But you can see here, I'm just concentrating with the camera here, just showing, you can see our fella here getting his torch together. You get kind of an idea of how big this job was. These cable drums are massive, all this, you know, you've got tons and tons of steel that's being put here, that's being cut up. While we are circling this for a couple more times, let me go into my notes about the Calumet history. It was first recognized in 1836 as being having potential for a harbor. In 1869, Chicago Dredge and Dock cut the channel from the Calumet River out to the lake. In the 1880s, Chicago annexed the area. Smart move. In 1921, the Lake Calumet Harbor Act authorized Chicago to build a deep water port. In 1922, the Calumet Sag Channel was completed, and that reversed the river's flow. So you're actually flowing out of the Calumet River and down into the Des Plaines River. Now, in 1951, that's when port districts were created. However, downstaters, lawmakers in the state of Illinois, were not really hip on Chicago. So the Illinois Port District was not allowed to levy by itself. It had to charge anybody who came in for using the facilities. As it was, in order to try and get people to lease property there and stay there, they gave them a cut rate deal. And that didn't keep up with inflation. So inflation ran riot over them. In April 1959, the St. Lawrence Seaway opened. April 25th. St. Lawrence Seaway had been around since the 1800s, but it had not been really a deep water seaway. And you can see we're still going here with the destruction, but we're going to be moving on in just a minute. I'll talk about the Rialto elevator for the Wabash Railroad coming up here in just a minute once we get off of this. June 30th, 1966. And if you really want a good program that shows you what we've lost, WGN did a program in 1966 narrated by Fraser Thomas about Chicago's Deepwater Port. So if you come into the Port of Chicago, Fraser Thomas did it, and it was very well done. It talks about Navy Pier, and it talks about the Port of Chicago. It talks about right here. And shooting the pictures from ground level, it was just mind-boggling the amount of steelmaking that was going on in a very small space. And compared to what you see here, remember what you see here and go ahead and it's on YouTube. Go ahead and take a look at it. And you will be just amazed at how much is lost. But anyway, the federal government getting grant money. Everybody always likes to get grant money. The federal government basically lumped everything together. So aircraft, highway, rail, ports, in order to get into that money, you had to apply for grants. This port didn't stand a chance with the popularity of air cargo, with the popularity of highway transport, with the popularity of rail. It's like, why do we want to give money to you? And so even up to the present day, they've had a lot of trouble trying to get grant money. However, in the recent past, over about the past 10 years or so, the U.S. Department of Transportation did actually make port-specific funding available. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it's probably going to be on hold again. But the biggest problem to advancing and fixing things, and here's the Rialto elevator down here. Star and Crescent Mill was down here. The Wabash Railroad was here. This actually caught fire in 1971 and then caught fire again in 1977. One was a lightning strike in 1977. It killed 4 guys, and it burned for about 2 months because the grain dust. The grain dust is exceedingly explosive. But this was built in the early 1900s for the Wabash Railroad. And here's the former Trump boat right there, the casino boat. You can see here that it's still in relatively decent shape. It's serviceable. But for the most part, the milling part of the operation there was suspended in the early 1980s. The early 1980s, when Calumet steelmaking kind of bit the dust. There was cheaper steel being brought in. There were more incentives to go over to Indiana. The state of Indiana supported the steelmaking industry there by helping fund the port system. Over here, we basically had to ask for help for the federal government. Now, Lori Lightfoot, believe it or not, she got about $32.4 million from state, county, and city funds in order to help rebuild some of the infrastructure. The rails were rotting away. The roads were all potholed. There at Iroquois Landing, right at the entrance, the seawall's breaking apart. And there was a lot of concern that the wall holding in some of that toxic dredgings from the Army Corps of Engineers would actually hemorrhage out into the lake. So they've been able to drop some more riprap out there. Don't know how much longer that's going to last. There's Mount Chicago. How much salt can you possibly have in one spot? And this is just a check to see how many of you are actually motion sick or prone to being motion sick. So here we are looking straight down at some of the little pancake ice here. We're going to go screaming over the Skyway. We're going to go over the top of the railroad bridges here. We're going to get ourselves just about over to Crowley's, and we're going to call that quits. So we do have another, and I don't know how am I doing on time here, because it's right at 8 o'clock. So is that what we are looking for?
Jim, don't look at me.
Hey, yeah. Is that good? I'll have a lot more. You invite me back, we're going to go flying over a lot of these lake boats. and we'll talk about each individual one. Boats that you'll never see again. And the reason that I got involved in this and the reason that I loved it so much is my dad took the time to take me down to the 100th Street Bridge, and we watched as those crew members went by and they waved and they were happy as they could be to see a kid going, "Hey, mister, blow the horn." And I watched them drop the mitt over there at KCBX. You know, they would drop a glove full of money down there to make sure that you were loaded on an even keel and could get in and out really quick. I heard all of the stories, the sailor stories over at Babe's Club and how great their occupation was compared to the railroad. And then I heard the railroad guys, how great their occupation was compared to the sailors. And then all of a sudden there were pool cues being smashed over heads and billiard balls flying through the window, and it was time to go. So, but yeah, it's been a big part of my life. I've loved the Calumet Harbor region. All of not only the lake boats out there, but all the boats, whether it's tall ships or other vessels that are coming to visit us at Navy Pier. The Wolverine, the Sable, I could talk for hours about that too. So I look forward to hopefully coming back and finishing a long, involved talk that could take days. Thank you very much. It's just been a thumbnail sketch of what's out there and that history that is over the horizon. Thank you. Oh, bye everybody at home, if there's anybody left. Any questions? Yes.
Back in industrial America.
By virtue of it all has to do with its own era. And I'm sure all of us can understand as we get older, myself included, that as you see parts and bits of your childhood disappear, how tough to impossible it would be to bring it back. You could do, in this day and age, everybody's more familiar with virtual reality. Can you rebuild it in a virtual space? Bringing it back the way it was, there are advancements in the technology that dictate that the infrastructure itself will be smaller. It will be more compact and it will be more multifunctional rather than one rolling mill over here and one stamping plant over here. They'll all be doing multiple jobs. The biggest thing that we face is having cheap steel brought in from out of the United States. So we'll have to see what how the cards play and how they lay out with the current administration and what they want to do. But bringing back what's gone down there, it's going to look a world different. Our big, huge, in-your-face steel mills, there are very few left. There are very few left. Probably the one that's the most intact is the Inland Steel Peninsula north of Gary. And also Bethlehem Steel over in Burns Harbor. They still have a big plant, and the Gary Works too, but it's not as big as it used to be. Inland Steel by far is the one that has the biggest layout. That's still what I would call recognizable. It is. Anybody else? Yes. The building is there. Babe, she passed on a long time ago, and Babe was every bit as big as a big blue ox from Paul Bunyan fame. She was absolutely she ran a tight ship. And when I was out there and I had Boots come in there and say, hey kid, you want to run a train? Yeah, he had a few. And I went out there and my dad was like, where did he go? Oh, I don't know. Oh, he's out there. Hey, Dad, I'm standing on the seat out there. Yeah, Babe passed away a long time ago. It's an Italian restaurant now. So Babe's Club is still there. It's not called Babe's Club, though. I forget what it's called. But the building's still there. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Anybody else? Yes. What the one the big snaky high dollar pay for it Klein Avenue Bridge? And you'll pay for it too. nowadays on the Klein Avenue Bridge. Well, the Klein Avenue, the part of Klein Avenue coming north from 8094, that's perpetually full of holes and everything else. Then all of a sudden you get to the Paper Drive Bridge that's north of the airport that kind of snakes around there. I never really dug into that, but that's a good challenge for me. I will look up why it's there, how it got there, who built it, and when. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. It was a shortcut, and you're not, because there's a lot of rail lines going through there, and you would never get past all those slag cars and everything. It was under. Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, well, there you go, right there. There's your Klein Avenue answer man, right there. Thank you, Jim. Yes. I didn't know that, so I've learned something too. Anybody else? Okay, yes.
In Northwest Indiana, when it was built.
Because I remember when that collapsed, right, because I was, believe it or not, I'm dating myself, I was a senior in high school when that happened. I remember when that collapsed. Yes. Yeah, but they're just that one, the Mark, Barker that just came out a couple of years ago. They will be able to go through the Welland Canal. No more 1,000-footers. They've kind of learned their lesson on that. They're not the Stuart Court and Roger Blau and everybody else, the big boys, and the Paul Tregurtha, which is the largest one that is out there. So, yes.
You mentioned about making one of the ships longer or something, because they actually cut into it and
Yeah.
extend it.
Yep, they actually put a plug in there and they extended it. That was the Lee Tregurtha was extended. There was a bunch of other vessels over the years. The American Victory was extended. That one was going to be turned into a tug barge, but they decided to just tow it away and scrap it. American Victory was another one that had battle stars for being an oiler, I believe. Anybody? Yes. When they closed down the casino, it got towed over there and then it just disappeared one day. It just, one day I was there, next day I came back, I'm like, I wonder what they're gonna, it's gone. Yes. Yeah, Jim.
You don't like her.
Oh, the Rock Island slip. Okay, yeah, because that's another one that's right down there. That's one of the railroad, because you got the Wabash slip, you got the Rock Island slip, and I know that one over there. I believe Rock Island is the one that goes in over by Kinder Morgan. I don't know what's going to happen. They've got a 66-year lease that is up next year, and Kinder Morgan has a good reputation about taking care of things. So if there's going to be that slip is going to stay there. I don't have any reason to believe that it's going to be filled up by anything. Although Brandenburg is over there, they're subletting a bunch of stuff on the Kinder Morgan property right now. I'm seeing a lot of the barges going in there that they're parked in those slips. Yeah, there's no slips that go unused. Yeah, anywhere from the Skyway all the way down to the O'Brien Lock. Any time you got a slip, there's something there. There's a lot of barges in there, a lot of barge traffic. Oh. Don't try this at home, folks. Or maybe try this at home.
You know what? I'm gonna stop sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody. Let's see. It's Nancy. Nancy, I can't unmute you. You'll have to unmute yourself. Or you can type your question in the chat because we can't hear you. I'm sorry, you're still muted, Nancy. We can't hear you. I think that was the question we just got online. It's the top right of the screen, right by where it says, right by where it says leave. Just next to that, you'll see mic. If you press that again, that will unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Harry. That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Nancy?
No, I didn't. I'd love for you to do
You are the head of the
program.
show, Nancy. Thank you
I'd
so
love
much,
you to
dear.
do a
I really
program on
appreciate it.
the. I'd love for you to do a program on the area during World War II and all the shipbuilding that went on there.
Oh, sure. The American Shipbuilding, that was a very active dock right there.
Uh-huh.
There was a lot of steel making that went on, the production for the war. The city of Chicago itself, as well as Northwest Indiana, was quite the hub of industrial might here. If you visit shameless self-promotion, City of War Chicago, you'll see that the Ford City Shopping Center, that was the old Dodge Chrysler plant, the Dodge engine plant. We had just north of there, right about 55th and Archer, was a Studebaker plant that made parts for B-17 engines. Over in Franklin Park, Melrose Park, we had right at North Avenue and Manheim what was Navistar. That was the old Buick engine plant that became Caterpillar after that. That built B-24 engines out there. We had the C-54 Skytrain. Those were built out at the Douglas plant out at O'Hare, which was Orchard Field at the time, hence the ORD. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, and then over the Forest Park Mall, right off of Roosevelt Road, that was Amertorp. That was American Torpedo. That made 90% of the torpedoes that were used in World War II. The Forest Park Mall. So kind of interesting there. Yes, thank you, Nancy.
Hello, Sam. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question there? And again, that mic button is just at the top right
Yes.
by where it's. Oh,
Hello.
All right.
I
Hi,
scared
Sam.
you away. First off, Kris, I guess we must be landsmen because I've spent about 4 years up in Ashland, Wisconsin, up at Northland College there.
Oh, right.
So soon to be closing permanently. But anyways, I was the one who asked the questions concerning the Rock Island slip and the fact that it was used for handling ore from the Lake Michigan, the Lake Michigan Steamship Transportation Company, coming up from Peshtigo, Wisconsin. And,
Peshtigo, that got lost in the Great Chicago Fire.
Yes.
News. Yes.
It's a pleasure to hear somebody who really appreciates Chicago history like me.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. I very much appreciate it. And thank you for chiming in there on the Rock Island slip, too. We'll just add that to all of the history of that area.
Yeah, you might want to get a copy of the book that the Underwater Archaeological Society of Chicago put out about the sinking of that car ferry, and that refers to it going into the Rock Island slip.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and good friends of mine are with the Underwater Archaeological Society. And so, yeah, I'll go ahead and inquire about that and learn something else. There's always something new. There's thousands of stories to be told.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. That's it. We're done. Thank you, everybody at home. We'll see you Monday morning on the CBS Morning News. Don't use the Kennedy. Whatever you do, don't use the Kennedy ever. Bye, everybody.